Bitter criticism, maybe the last one. Maybe the last one. I still need, I'm afraid of CIA. I'm afraid of Anthony Blinken. I guess they will kill me and Tommy, and well, Milou will survive as usual. And Mursi too. Mursi, stick with Milou, okay? Mursi will try to survive too, but me and Tommy will perish. Anthony Blinken will kill us. That's the reality. And well, I will do another channel. You will see. It will be funny. But I don't. Well, I will tell you. I will draw another. I will do the show right here, like this. Like this. Unfortunately, we are not watching the sea anymore, isn't it? Because I'm too lazy to have the tripod here. I'm too lazy to bring the tripod, but it will be in this very spot right here, like that. And as you know, people here steal everything. There's still this stick. There's still everything. So I cannot have a installation. I'm on the street, and people steal everything, even anything. If I let a stick here, they will steal it. They will take off. So yeah. But it's the only way to be the owner of a nice emergency truck like this. That's the only way, But yeah, I'm going to draw right there a dog. No, Elanus leucurus. No, I was afraid of CIA, I was afraid of CIA. And I realized I need a second account to keep reading news. Crazy like sounds, just crazy like it sounds. I have and no, I was smoking weed yesterday, and I had this insight of waiting for my beautiful bird, the Elanus leucurus. Is not here. There's a lot of seagulls, but not Elanus leucurus. And my idea is to read news, recording with 2 cell phones, understand? So I will keep recording this one, the 47 minutes, and eventually when the Elanus leucurus show up, I will record. Well, crazy idea, stoned idea. But I guess it was a nice one. Well, Russia Today. So I will read news, recording my Elanus leucurus, my white-tail kite. It's a kite, actually. It's kinda, it looks like a pussy. That bird looks like a chicken, a chicken with a gay chicken. I like it. I like the way it flies. Anyway, so, looks like an owl, a small owl, but it's super. The most beautiful thing about my Elanus leucurus, this bird he stops in the air like a kite, just like a kite. Well, I'm going to read news now. September 21, day to smoke weed. Home, Russia and former Soviet Union. Russian drones tear Ukrainian tanks to pieces. Ministry of Defense video. The vehicle's ammunition load detonated after it was hit by two consecutive UAVs. UAV strikes from behind, according to the footage. And we have a video. Actually, there's what was a tank. A tank is blowing through the air. Yeah, a blowing tank. Russian drones have destroyed a Ukrainian tank in Kursk region beyond repair. The Defense Ministry in Moscow has said, releasing video of a spectacular explosion. In a statement on Friday, the ministry said that the Russian group of forces North, which is repelling Kiev's large-scale incursion on Russian soil, had conducted two UAV strikes on Russian armor. Officials said that the, quote, objective monitoring equipment had recorded the detonation of the tank ammunition load, end of quote. The 40-second clip released by the ministry shows a Russian rotor drone targeting a Ukrainian tank from behind as it speeds down a rural road along the forest. After the first drone crashes into the tank's turret, sending a plume of smoke into the air, the second carries out a follow-up attack. A separate video, apparently filmed from a reconnaissance drone hundreds of meters away, then shows a powerful fiery explosion that sends pieces of armor and apparently the tank turret flying into the air. Ukraine launched its largest ever incursion into Kursk region early last month and initially made some gains, with officials in Kiev claiming that the operation was aimed at improving the country's standing for possible peace talks with Moscow. The Russian Defense Ministry has said the advance has been halted and that its troops have begun pushing Ukraine back. Moscow has also ruled out any engagement with Kiev as long as it has boosts on Russian territory and continues indiscriminate strike on civilians there. The Russian Defense Ministry has estimated Ukrainian losses at more than 15,300 troops and more than 1,000 armored vehicles since the start of the incursion. Looks like it is more, you know. This Kursk incursion, for me, sounds like it was 10 years from the start. I'm exaggerating, but just 1 month. Just 1 month. Well, I can't see any management here, any how to say and there's an opinion, there's another by Rachel Marson, the Pepe Escobar wife, I guess. Nah, who knows. September 21, 2024, Home World News. Has the EU suddenly realized how much it has screwed itself over? Mario Draghi's quote, competitiveness report says the bloc's economic situation is dire, but shies away from pointing out the culprit, by Rachel Marson, a columnist, political strategist, and host of independently produced talk shows in French and English. I want to see these talk shows. I want to see, you know, back in Brazil there was auditorium shows. They call auditorium shows of auditorium stuff like I don't know, Quest, you know, Quest, entertainment shows. I wanna see some left entertainment show made by Rachel Martin and Pepe Escobar. What about that? It's just entertainment, please. File Mario Draghi. The EU is having a full-blown existential crisis. Someone has really screwed up its economy, and the culprit is conspicuously absent from a new report outlining the carnage. Are there no mirrors in Brussels to Europe see themselves, isn't it? Former European Central Bank President and Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi has published a new quote economic competitiveness report after a year of work at the request of unelected Queen Ursula von der Leyen. Yeah, unelected, just like Zelensky. The unelected, isn't it? The unelected democracy. That will be the unelected European democracy. The unelected, that will be the headline to this time. I'm going to try to see something about Zelensky election, just to put more substance in this video. The unelected Queen Ursula von der Leyen's Royal European Commission. Yeah, well done, Rachel. And it's a real page turner, one of the great mysteries of our times. One is left to breathlessly live through the 400-page document looking for a culprit responsible for the massive amount of economic carnage detailed by Draghi. Quote, "For the first time since the Cold War, we must genuinely fear for our self-preservation," he told reporters in Brussels. How about starting off by not actively self-sabotaging? Draghi said that the bloc desperately needs to keep up with China and the US, but has been failing. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that the EU readily jumped into the right shotgun alongside Uncle Sam along regime change highway, but now finds itself kicking dirt on the roadside and wanting to make its own way. Quote, "Now conditions have changed," Draghi said. World trade is slowing. He's saying that. Quote, World trade is slowing. China is actually slowing very much, but it's become much less open to us, and actually it's competing with us in global markets on all accounts. Yeah, interesting, very interesting. We have lost our main supplier of cheap energy, Russia, and now we have to start from our defense again. For the first time since the Second World War. Apparently, the jokers ruling Europe from the big top tent in Brussels are shocked to discover that they've been victimized. How could possibly have done such a thing? Read more. These are related news. Western governments are in a crisis of their own making. But I'm going to read an article about Zelensky not being elected for this term, just to support my headline. Gotta love the use of the passive there. Lost their cheap energy from Russia. Like it just fell out of their pocket like a set of house keys on the way back from the store. Listening to Draghi, you had you had also think that the EU hasn't actually adopted the decoupling from China as a strategy. Egged on by Washington, egged on by Washington, which wanted Europe all to itself. Before EU officials rebranded it at their risking, when they realized how stupid a move it would be to fully alienate China as the bloc's top trading partner and customer. And now, on GI, the EU has to start thinking about its own defense again. Draghi said rather than just using it to shake free some natural resources from other places with fortuitously located terrorist problems. The Ukraine conflict has been an equally convenient excuse to make more weapons at taxpayer expense for the EU's own defense after emptying out the all junk from its closets. Good things too, because making more weapons is about the only real easy answer for improving the economy right now, judging by the dire state of things outlined in this new report. Still, the EU can't even do the military-industrial racket thing, the racket right. Draghi has pointed out that EU members are basically idiots for buying most of their weapons abroad, with nearly 2/3 coming from the US. Big mystery as to why Washington wants to keep the party going in Ukraine when it's making bank by drumming up the need to ramp up weapons purchases from EU members. Under the guise that their former top economy lifeline and energy supplier Russia was suddenly a big threat to them. The bonus making Europe more dependent on the US for pricier gas too. The whole report is just loaded with gems like this one. Quote, "If Europe cannot become more productive, we will be forced to choose. We will not be able to become at once a leader in new technologies, a beacon of climate responsibility, and an independent player of the world stage. On the world stage, we will not be able to finance our social model. We will have to scale back some, if not all, of our ambitions. This is an existential challenge." Draghi is going on about all these grand ambitions, like leading new tech and being a climate and social icon, while Europeans elites have been yelling at the plebs to turn down the heating and air conditioning to stick it to Putin and sharing mild winters like we are living in the dark ages. Draghi also said that the EU needs another 800 billion euros, $890 billion, which is about 4.5% of the entire bloc's GDP, just to be able to stay globally competitive. And that competitiveness can only be achieved by thoroughly unscrewing everything they screw up over the past 2.5 years, and through self-inflicted idiocy in the interest of impressing their girlfriend Vladimir Zelensky, aka President of Ukraine. Yeah, but I forgot. I guess I'm not going to read the political situation of Zelensky. Yeah, that was just a bad idea. I will read this Russia Today related news. Like this one, read more. Should the US abandon Europe? Pretty nice topic, isn't it? Draghi also said that the amount of cash needed to make the EU competitive now is so massive that private investment just won't cut it. And well, you know what that means. In related news, EU taxpayers, there's a sale right now on Amazon France for 4 tubes of lube. 4 euro tubes for lube. I didn't got that. There's a sale right now on Amazon France for 4 tubes of lube. I didn't got that. Anyway, but what is EU taxpayers don't want to comply because they have had enough of paying for all these screw ups, as recent elections across the EU suggests, with anti-establishment parties surging. Well, here's Draghi with the plea. Cue the violence. Quote, why do we care so much about growing? Yes, we have to finance these needs, and these needs are important, but why are they so important? Well, they are important because they have to do with our founding values: prosperity, equity, peace, and democracy in a sustainable world. And the EU exists to ensure Europeans that they actually will benefit from these fundamental rights. And if Europe can no longer provide them to its people, it will have lost its reason for being. The end of quote. Put the lube on ice, folks. He's giving, maybe lube is a drink, I guess. I'm pretty ignorant. He's giving seduction a try. Queen Ursula will no doubt be along shortly to play the bad cop. So basically, the EU the EU's brain trust blew a bunch of cash and deregulated the economy for Ukraine. But now they need Europeans to be okay with handing over even more cash, because it's totally for their own good. This time it will work out. Promise, just like it did with that ex who you let crawl back into your life one too many times. Maybe she's talking about Pepe Escobar, who knows. Meanwhile, von der Leyen is talking about the need for economic supply security, and Draghi is saying that the EU needs more friends. Once that happens to have a ton of resources that they can cozy up to, preferably. And he's also saying that some countries are already trying to do that on their own, but it will be better if the EU took charge of it. Draghi added that the blog was, quote, pushing under our power. More like it's been pushing itself right in the face over and over again. If the EU's recent policies and performance are in any indication. The statements, views, and opinions expressed on this column are solely those of the Rachel Martsen, ex-girlfriend of Pepe Escobar, and not necessarily represent those of Russia Today. I just guess, you know. I don't care. I wish the best for Rachel and Pepe Escobar. If I were in Russia, just like Pepe is, I will have 5 kids. I'm sorry. Read more. Western governments are in a crisis of their own making. I'm going to read this one. I just forgot about. I guess I read this from some time ago. Western governments are in a crisis of their own making. By blindly following the US into its proxy wars, EU leaders have triggered a backlash that threatens to bring them down. Graham Rice is an Australian journalist and former media lawyer whose work has been published in The Australian, The Sydney Morning Herald, and The Age. I guess I'll read this. It's so old from like two weeks. And we have another. I read it all. Should the US abandon Europe? I read it. I also read that. My boys are chasing a bee, a huge bee. How to say huge bee? In Spanish you say abejorro, but anyway. So today there's no trace of Elanus leucurso. That was a bad idea. It was a bad idea, but eventually I will find that bird and I will film it. I will film it and I will read some news with another. I will see what I'm going to do. I already have some footages. I don't know. Maybe I only will post some. Maybe I will only post some bus news. Just the bus news, the short ones. Maybe that's it. Who knows? And there's another very interesting from September 21, 2024. Home Russia and former Soviet Union. All of Europe does business with Russia. Hungary. EU economic cooperation with Moscow continues despite the sanctions, Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has said. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó during a meeting before I read this, I have to remember very, very critically, very, very bitter, that what the EU, what NATO really wants, what NATO wanted in the first place, it was destroy the Russian government. That's it. They targeted Russia to steal their resources, They thought the energy was not cheap enough. That will be my headline now. Yeah. Europe thought Russian energy wasn't cheap enough. I will record this. Look, I will take a note here. Europe thought Russian energy wasn't cheap enough. And that's it. That's my I'm sending to my secretary here. To my secretary. Let's hear this. Let's hear this note. Europe thought Russian energy wasn't cheap enough. And that was my note. Funny, isn't it? I have a secretary back in Brazil. So I'm like a Brazilian journalist here, lost in Chile. It's not that bad. You have dogs, You fortunately will not have pussy. You will not have pussy. You will not have any pussy here in Chile. There's not pussy, unfortunately. But here we go with the second. September 21, 2024. Russia and former Soviet Union. All of Europe does business with Russia. Hungary. EU economic cooperation with Moscow continues despite the sanctions, Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has said. Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó during a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Brussels, Belgium, On January 22, 2024, Dursun Aydemir Anadolu via Getty Images. A significant number of companies in the EU continue to discreetly do business with Russia despite the bloc's sanctions, Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó has said. Quote, "Here you will like to disappoint the idealist, as the situation is that everyone in Europe is doing this," Szijjártó said in Budapest on Friday, end of quote. "The difference between us and the others in general is that we speak honestly and openly about this issue. All of Europe does business with the Russians, but some deny this." Quote, all this is a quote from, this is a huge quote. This, "We don't need that. All Europe does business with the Russians, but some deny this. We don't need that." Yeah, some Europeans say they don't need Russia, but my opinion is even sinister, you know. My opinion, knowing Russian people, you know, knowing Europe history. What is Europe history? Is imperialism. They wanted to destroy Russia, that's it. They wanted to steal all Russian resources in exchange for, I don't know, for illusions, you know, Western illusions. Western abuse. Yeah, Western abuse, Western robbery. I guess I don't have Italian citizenship anymore. Please don't make me famous. Szijjártó added that Hungary does not agree with the sanctions, but since this is EU policy, Budapest respects them. Hungary typically vetoes specific EU proposals if they seriously harm national interest. He said, adding that developing economic cooperation with Russia is one of those interests. The EU imposed sanctions on Moscow in 2014 and expanded them after the Ukraine conflict escalated in 2022. The main targets are high-value sectors of the Russian economy, including energy, finance, and trade. And there's a related news, not too related in my opinion. Switzerland to expel hundreds of Russian scientists, media. Hungary has long been at odds with the EU over its approach to the Ukraine conflict and its sanctions policy towards Moscow. This makes it difficult for the EU to agree on new restrictions. Euractiv reported in August, citing diplomatic sources. Many experts in both Russia and the West have warned that unilateral sanctions bring more harm to the countries that impose them than to Russia itself. EU officials have also acknowledged that Moscow has been successful in sidestepping the restrictions. In June, Finance Ministry data showed that Russian budget revenues from oil and gas soared by 73.5% in January-May this year compared to the first 5 months of 2023. I'm going to read a very last one. US moving extra troops to Alaska. Politico. What about Alaska? September 21. Washington has sent additional forces to the region amid an uptick in Russian and Chinese activity, the outlet says. We have a photograph of US service member. The US is reinforcing its military presence in Alaska due to increased Russian and Chinese activity off the coast, Politico reported on Friday. The outlet noted that over the past month, the US has redeployed numerous assets, including the destroyer USS Starret. In addition, ground forces are now stationed on one of the state's remote islands, and that fighters and other aircraft have been put on heightened alert. Business Insider reported last week that the deployment included elements of the 11th Airborne Division supported by HIMARS missile systems and counter-fire radars to keep an eye on Sino-Russian naval exercises. Senator Dan Sullivan, a Republican Alaska, sounded the alarm over an uptick in Russian and Chinese military activities. The number of assets have gone way up. It's air surface and subsurface that the Russians are employing, but they are doing it much more in a joint capacity with China than they've ever done. They are clearly escalatory, he said. Meanwhile, Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Jack Reed, Democrat Rhode Island, suggested that Russia's military activities, some as a response to Washington's support for Kiev in its conflict with Moscow, quote, "I think they are probably also trying to send a message to their own country," end of quote, he said. On September 15, the Russian Defense Ministry said two of its Tu-95 strategic bombers flew over the Chukchi Sea in neutral airspace, not far from Alaska, to practice, quote, "carrying out airstrikes with air-launched cruise missiles on key facilities on a simulated enemy, while being escorted by several fighter jets." In July, officials in Moscow announced that Russian and Chinese bombers were on a joint patrol mission in the same area. They stated that the planes complied with all international aviation regulations while being shadowed by fighter jets from unnamed foreign countries. On Friday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov vowed that Moscow would protect its interests in the Arctic, saying that NATO nations appear to be eyeing expansion into the region. And that's it from Russia today. Oh no, I have no more time, but I'm going to read just whatever I found quickly in CGTN. See the difference, hope for the world. I will read the 5 top news, the 5 front news. Politics, September 21, 2024. President Xi extends greetings ahead of Farmers Harvest Festival. Woo! I hope to drink some beer. We have a photograph. Farmers transport freshly harvested organic rice in Kaichang County, Dazhou City, southwest China's Sichuan province, September 11, 2024. You can make beer with rice. Xi Jinping, General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, CPC, Central Committee, has extended festive greetings and sincere regards on behalf of the CPC Central Committee to farmers and people working on agricultural and rural fronts ahead of the Tommy! Dale. Cállate. Well, that's it. It's not a bad surprise. Cállate. But it's actually funny, you know. Tommy. Sale. Well, says she also Chinese president. Well, and chairman. Well, that's it. She's well, another high-level China-U.S. talks in Beijing aims to strengthen economic partnerships. The fifth meeting of the China-U.S. Economic Working Group is held in Beijing from September 19 to 20. High-level China-U.S. talks in Beijing aims to strengthen economic partnerships. Economy, September 21. Here we have a photograph. The fifth meeting of the China-U.S. Economic Working Group is held in Beijing from September 19 to 20. Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng met with Undersecretary of the U.S. Treasury Jai Shambog in Beijing on Friday as part of the ongoing efforts to stabilize and develop economic relations between the two nations. She stated the need to uphold the consensus reached between the leaders of both nations during their meeting in San Francisco last November, as well as their subsequent phone call in April. He called for enhanced communication and coordination of macroeconomic policies and stressed handling bilateral concerns equally and respectfully. Shambod relayed a message from U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen expressing the U.S. eagerness to maintain economic dialogues and foster a healthy China-U.S. economic relationship. The meeting coincided with the fifth meeting of the China-U.S. Economic Working Group. The economic talks held in Beijing from Thursday to Friday were co-chaired by Chinese Vice Minister of Finance Liao Ming and Shambao. And the very last one, space, September 21, Chang'e 6. Maybe I don't have time for a last one. Yeah. I don't have time for a last one. I don't have time for nothing. I don't have time for yoga. Yeah. Can you see I cannot do yoga? Well, Daniel Jadue is traumatized. Unfortunately, Daniel Jadue is traumatized I'm going to listen the last one, the very last one.
El líquido.
No, pues no es nada, con todo el respeto del mundo y con todo el esfuerzo que se puede haber hecho, digamos. No es nada.
Por eso, vuelvo a reiterarlo, es muy bueno porque esto se hizo en un minuto en donde había una necesidad de subir el sueldo mínimo. Se hizo además con algo que no lograron los gobiernos anteriores, que fue un acuerdo con la CUT, ¿no? Se hizo incluso un acuerdo en donde se anticipó mantener la velocidad de crecimiento si es que la inflación seguía tan alta, y por lo tanto hay que aplaudirlo, pero hay que aplaudirlo en un contexto en donde veníamos con un atraso sideral y se trata de remontar. Lo relevante es entender que hoy día ese sueldo al que estamos llegando el 1 de julio no le alcanza a las familias más vulnerables ni siquiera para llegar a fin de mes sin tener que endeudarse y recurrir a pagar interés incluso para comer.
Desde su taller de bicicletas clandestino, cuando está jugando con su nueva gatita, que llegó a la casa del querido Ricardo. Ricardo nos va a poner una cortina de ¿cuánto? De 15 segundos y seguimos dialogando con pensamiento crítico sin maquillaje en la compañía de Daniel Jadwe. Cuando a mí me dicen patrimonio, yo podría pensar cuál es mi patrimonio, cuánta plata tengo, qué propiedades tengo. ¿Qué es lo que es el patrimonio, Daniel Jadwe? Es una visión. ¿Qué es el patrimonio?
El patrimonio son los valores que tiene una familia o una sociedad, ¿no?
Ya.
Y se dividen en patrimonio. Mira, estoy haciendo lo que hago siempre, César, que a ti no te gusta, pero
No.
voy a buscar la definición efectiva. ¿Qué cosa es el patrimonio? Conjunto de bienes, derechos y obligaciones que tiene una persona o empresa. Los bienes son los elementos materiales e inmateriales con que cuenta una sociedad en este caso. Por ejemplo, las viviendas, las cosas que son valiosas, ¿no? Los edificios, las plazas, los cerros, la naturaleza, el patrimonio natural.
Believe it or not, this country has a week of patrimony, a month of patrimony, something, belongings, understand? And that's it. I hope Daniel Jadwe someday come back to his channel.